Hello and welcome to more of this. We take a look now at this. In defense of Hugo Chavez. Hugo Chavez was, at the time, the only Venezuelan president to have ever given a damn about the people of Venezuela. Before Chavez, governments had only cared about and served the tiny rich elite and their friends in the United States. One news comment I read at the time stated, "The only people in Venezuela who do like Chavez are the poor." Well, the poor in Venezuela are 80% of the population. 80%. America, I'm quoting Condoleezza Rice, said, "We have serious concerns about his interpretation of democracy." Rich Venezuelans called him a dictator. All this despite the fact he was elected with a landslide majority. What do they mean? Well, Chavez was a socialist, which means redistributing wealth from the rich to the poor. The rich think that this is an infringement of their human rights. Never mind the right of the neglected majority to a life of dignity. Any attack on the privilege of the elite was enough to make them cry and whinge and call him names, such as dictator, when he was nothing of the sort. The USA has long treated Latin America as its backyard and has supported and instigated violence, torture, death squads, and other measures to keep the people from setting up governments that represented them, rather than the tiny land and business owning elite and US corporate interests. The standard model for neo-colonialism is for the rich world to have a government in power which was friendly to them, and which gave concessions to a local elite which would help keep them in power. Venezuela was a typical example. Successive governments catered for the small rich elite and maintained conditions ripe for American business to profit. In particular, the Venezuelan regime kept the oil flowing cheaply to the US. Chavez decided that the oil wealth belongs to the people of Venezuela and should be invested in development to benefit everyone in Venezuela, rather than the rich of the country and the USA. Examples of Chavez's policies included increasing taxes on big corporations, including American ones, and attaching other conditions to ensure that their activities would help the people of Venezuela, particularly the poor. For this, he was labelled a dictator by the USA and by local elites. These guys couldn't handle the fact that, for once, there was a government that was not putting them first, but that was putting the 80% majority of the country who were poor and had never had a voice. There was a TV station that was run by and for the rich in the country, which slandered Chavez with the most libelous accusations. Some people outside Venezuela got the impression that this was simply something like the free press criticising the government and being censored for doing their journalistic duty, but this is not an accurate portrayal of what happened. If the BBC had behaved in the way this station did, they'd have been shut down. We saw the trouble the BBC got in for the most minor criticism of the Iraq War. What the TV station in Venezuela was doing eclipsed this tenfold. This station was a blatant propaganda organ of the elite classes and had been getting away with coverage no British paper or channel would have dared to. Chavez promoted grassroots initiatives in local communities, including the barrios, the poor slum areas of cities which make up the majority of the cities. He set up health clinics for people who had never had access to them before. Massive investments were made for healthcare and education for the benefit of 80% of the country who are poor. So these are the points why Chavez is the only head of state the Venezuelans ever had who cared about them, rather than the tiny rich elite or American corporate interests. When people slag him off, it's because he helps the poor. That's why they don't like Chavez, because he helps the poor. Hopefully, his successor will be able to carry on his good work. Chavez has passed away in the last year or so. I've not paid attention to what's happened since then. Anyway, American global hegemony is exploitative and abusive, as is neoliberal economics, free market fundamentalist economics. Chavez has spearheaded a Latin American movement against these things and for a new world based on solidarity. The left has been swept to power across Latin America in a surge of popular empowerment. Hopefully, this is ushering in a new era in which Latin America will be run in the interests of the people rather than tiny rich elites of land and business owners and American corporate interests. Viva la revolución!